Well, thank you, Paul Begala, for joining me. You are one of the Democratic Party's canniest political minds and with a lot of experience. And I want to talk to you today about the homeowners insurance issue that seems to be popping, particularly in coastal states, but also in states where wildfire is a big insurance issue. I did a poll down in Texas, getting ready for a visit to Texas on this issue. And the poll showed that 92% of Texans are concerned about their homeowners insurance, which was more than mortgages, groceries, and healthcare. And that 63% announced that they were very concerned about that issue. You've seen a lot of polls, You've run a lot of races. What should Democrats learn from numbers like that?
First, thanks. Thanks for highlighting this. It's an incredibly important issue, Senator. Talk about it. It's not the weather, which everybody talks about and nobody does anything about. This is something we don't talk about. And it is, if President Clinton were here, he would say, Senator, this is a bird's nest on the ground, right? You just walk on it and it's completely ready. It's one of the real drivers of the concern about cost and cost of living. And I always start at the grocery store and the gas pump. Most people do. You think about cost. But you're right. You can somehow, get hamburger helper now that hamburgers at $6.34 a pound. There's nothing you can do if you can't insure your home. And you know this, but home is really an emotional thing as well as a financial thing. And it's the symbol of the American dream. And if you're priced out of it, you get pretty angry. And this is one of the reasons I think that young people, particularly younger men, went and flirted with Donald Trump in the last election, is they believed that we weren't talking to their fundamental needs to provide and to protect. And I had a young guy in Pennsylvania, in Lehigh County, the swing county of the swing state, and he's 30 years old, trying to buy a house, and he can't. And he was thinking back on healthcare and how people like me had been fighting over that issue for a long time. And he said, home ownership is for my generation what healthcare was for yours. And boy, that was a clarifying moment.
Yeah, and that actually takes me to a race back in the day where you and I first got acquainted because you were in that race and friends of mine were working in that race. And that was the legendary race of Harris Wofford, a relative unknown, for the U.S. Senate seat in Pennsylvania that hadn't been Democrat in 20 plus years, against a very well-known Republican official, the former Attorney General of the United States, Dick Thornburgh. What's the lesson for us from that? Remind us about that race and tell us what the lesson is.
I think it's so analogous because, Senator Wofford was an accidental senator. John Hines, who's a great man, was killed in a tragic plane accident. So the governor appointed Harris to the Senate. Harris had worked for Martin Luther King. He'd worked for President Kennedy. But he was a little bit of a fuzzy-headed intellectual. He never run for sheriff. And I loved him. But I was the young, hard-edged operative placed in there to run the campaign. And it was pretty easy because we're running during a recession. So I do the polling. It says jobs, economy. It's like, and Wofford was the Secretary of Labor and Industry. So it was a perfect match between the man and the mission. I was like, Harris, we're going to run jobs and the economy. And he said, the truth is every strike, every plant closing, every negotiation, everything I'm dealing with around jobs is really a healthcare issue. He's like, you want to fix the economy, you want to get jobs going, you got to fix healthcare. And I at least was wise enough to test it. And the power of that issue, explaining the reason why you are stuck is because the healthcare system has screwed you. It was electric, and it took an unknown guy, and it defeated. We were 47 points behind in the first poll. Wofford wins by 10. He gained 57 points on the strength of that issue, and the power of it was everybody already knew, but no one was giving voice to it. And I think this is very, very analogous because everybody knows. Believe me, you go to the coffee shop, and everybody's going to be talking about how their insurance rates are going through the roof. But
yeah, you go to Florida and ask anybody about homeowners insurance, and you are going to get an earful.
Absolutely, or Carville's home in Louisiana.
Yeah. Carville, by the way, calls this the huge sleeper issue of this coming election. So you and he are quite aligned on this.
Exactly right. Well, we've been partners for 40 years. I generally translate for him. That's been my only utility in this business, Senator. But when you have an issue that everybody cares about, but no politician is talking about, and then you tap into it, it is electric. Because you don't have to educate. You don't have to persuade. You just get these head nods every town hall meeting. And you talk about realtors. They're the backbone of every community.
Yep. Okay? Insurance agents.
Yes, your local
small
insurance
banks.
Folks, your bank, the construction companies. Everybody knows about this, but nobody's talking about it. If the Democrat sees this issue, I'm telling you, it'll take off. If they don't, they will be seen as more out of touch, and some smart Republican's going to pick up on it in some weird way. I don't really know how they would approach it, but that's, I think, a risk.
In the Senate, we are pressing very hard to try to make sure that pretty much everything that we talk about focuses into just a few buckets. One bucket, obviously, is costs. Family costs are too high. Trump is making them worse, not better. And that's an important part of our argument for 26. The other part is corruption and how angry people are about corruption. This issue, the homeowners insurance, is obviously cost. But when you look at the climate change, extreme weather that is driving it, you also drive straight into the corruption issue, where Republicans can't talk about climate change because they've got so much fossil fuel money stuffed in their pockets. Talk a little bit about how the cost and corruption issues can work together to strengthen this with voters.
Well, as Henry Kissinger would say, it has the benefit of being true. That's what's really going on. And people know it. They know it in their bones. They know it in their life experience. If you tell them that the big oil companies are screwing them, they'll go, yeah. You tell them the big insurance companies are screwing them. So, and this way, they're getting you coming and going. First off, they have really pillaged us on the cost of energy. And now, because they're selling us this polluted energy that's killing the climate and causing these storms, now they're jacking up your insurance rates. So you pay more to cause the problem, and now you're trying to pay more to insure against it. They get you coming and going. It's like the old joke about the guy who opened a veterinary clinic and a taxidermist combined, and the sign above the store said, either way, you get your dog back. Either way, you're getting screwed. Either the fossil fuel companies are getting you on the cost of energy, or the insurance, and because of that, the insurance companies are getting you on the cost of insurance. And when we tap into that, I'm telling you, everybody's going to get it. You don't have to explain it. And you just have to show that you're on it and that you care. And I think it'll be a huge winner.
And the Republicans, of course, are getting big bucks, both from the fossil fuel industry and the insurance industry, in order to keep mum on the problem and not solve it.
If we do what you're talking about, which is link up the high cost of living and the corruption of this crowd, man, you've got something. And I do think the corruption piece of it takes a bit of persuading. They get it, but you have to explain that to them. And by the way, this is how every autocracy fails. It always fails because of inflation and debt and corruption. Always. And that's how the pseudo-autocracy of Mr. Trump is going to fail. But we have to get in there and make that connection, because I don't think people get that until you say it. That people can't process information they're not given. But once you give it to them and it resonates with their life, man, it's going to take off.
You run campaigns, and you know extremely well that running on 92% of Texans care about this issue, and 63% are very concerned, isn't anywhere near as credible as the ability to tell a story about an individual and how that individual is experiencing the problem that you're trying to solve. Just in case a candidate someday sees this and just wants to think about what are some good things that might be good examples of stories to tell that will illustrate the cost and corruption problem and how families are getting screwed, what kind of stories should we be looking out for?
Well, boy, that's the most important thing in political messaging. You know, my old man was a salesman, and he used to say, facts tell, but stories sell. right? And if you go in there, and this is the beauty of the job you have, Senator, and your colleagues. You deal with policy and it's 30,000 feet, but every day someone is calling your office, emailing, sending you a letter. Every day you're going to a town hall meeting when you're home, or you're going to the Piggly Wiggly grocery store, at least in my beloved South. And folks are going to come up to you and tell you their
That would be
stories.
the Cumberland Farms up in Rhode Island. So,
Or Cumberland Farms. And you've got these stories, and I think we should mind them. Go through, get all your caseworkers, get all your folks back home in your state and district offices, because all of us have a story like this. And it's one of the most powerful things. Yeah, you don't want to give people facts and stats. The media never sends a reporter out and says, get a bunch of statistics. They say, get a story.
Yeah.
And a good story has a hero. It has a villain. It has a victim. It has some tension and then some resolution, right? This is really elemental stuff. But when we do that, instead of just talking about the highfalutin public policy stuff, people get that. Everybody has a kid who can't live in the same neighborhood that they grew up in because they can't afford the house. Or God help us, what's more heartbreaking? The only thing more heartbreaking than having to sell your house because you can't afford it is not being able to because no one will insure it. And we're getting both of those stories right now, and they will be everywhere. But you're right. We have to tell stories. We have to put names and faces on it. And the tragic good news is there's going to be a lot of them.
Yeah, a homeowner whose property value actually went down because of the insurance crisis is a story. The homeowner who can't sell at all because nobody can buy the house because it's unmortgageable, because it's uninsurable, and they're stuck and they'd like to sell and they can't. Or on the other side, the young couple that is all set to buy their first home and everything is set, except that at the last minute, they couldn't get insurance and the deal fell through and they can't get their home. Those are, I think, pretty important stories to families, and I think they would resonate. Not to mention, sometimes you get thrown in this market to an unknown insurer who you haven't chosen, or the bill just gets added to your mortgage because your mortgage company added the new insurance and your mortgage suddenly went up $500 or $1,000. All of those stories matter to people, don't they?
Right. Absolutely. And we have to retrain our candidates. You need to retrain your colleagues. All of them have one of these things in their pocket. And so when you're at the Cumberland Farm grocery store and the young woman starts telling you about how she and her new husband can't afford a home, whip this out and say, excuse me, Nancy, do you mind if this is really important and I want my colleagues and friends to see it. Can you talk about it with me? I'm serious. You should be your own. Your consultants are going to be mad at me, Senator. You should be your own media consultant, because we all have this, and it's so much more credible than, blue shirt, red tie, go on Meet the Press. We have to do that stuff. But my God, we all can capture those stories, as the kids say, IRL, right when they're happening.
Well, thank you, Paul. You were instrumental in that really remarkable Wofford win, which not just put Harris Wofford into the Senate, but really changed politics. You were instrumental in It's the Economy, Stupid, and getting President Clinton elected. And you've been extremely wise for us about the Southern votes that are available for us to win and the sleeper issues that we're missing. So really grateful to have this conversation with you. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Senator. Cost and corruption, you're on it.